how are you? How are we doing? Welcome to this extremely special video. Today we have the Fangchengbao 8. Why'd I say it's extremely special? First of all, this brand comes from the BYD group, and the most interesting thing is that it has an exclusive collaboration with Huawei, and the most interesting thing is that we have complete autonomous driving from Huawei. That's why I say it's extremely special. The Huawei R7 that we tested previously had version 3.1, and today we're going to test autonomous driving with ADS version 3.2.1, so it's going to be a perfect match. Oh, by the way, Ricardo says hi.
Hi, guys. And we're going to start directly with the very robust design that we have from Fangchengbao Bao. Notice that we have the daytime running lights with a glass effect. Look at the detail we have from here. By the way, we would have the turn signals in this part, and we would have the intermittent lighting all the way to the top, and here we would have the high and low beams, taking into account that the high beams autofocus automatically. For example, if there is a vehicle in front, we don't need to remove or replace the high beams. Instead, it simply detects that there is a vehicle thanks to all the sensors that I will explain to you now. Then, it leaves a box so that it doesn't light up directly on the vehicle in front, or if it is coming towards you. This vehicle is quite heavy, and not only because it has a large battery, which is a pretty decent 36.2 kWh battery, but mainly for safety reasons. It weighs 3.3 tons, and the fact is that in the front alone, we have 4 safety bars. By the way, I'm going to leave you a video right here of it crashing into a truck and coming out in perfect condition. Well, not in perfect condition, I mean, logically with quite a bit of damage, but safety comes first. So, the 4 bars remain largely intact, and that is safety, since it is an off-road vehicle. We have an all-terrain vehicle in capital letters. Come over here, Ricardo. Let's show you the sides because our design is absolutely worth it. 5.2 meters, that is, it is quite a large vehicle that does not go unnoticed. We have these skirts that cover the entire area of the wheel, and we have 21-inch wheels, but we have 275 with some Piris. But the most interesting thing is that we have the P, and we inherited that from the Yong 1 U8. That is why in the video of the Denta Z9 I explained to you that the BYD group, having these 4 brands from the most luxurious Yong 1 to the BYD, inherit all the innovations. So here we have the UNIMP that I will explain to you later. We have some pop-up handles. There is a curious fact that we could have it blocked if we were not off-roading. So, there is a lot of mud at the entrance. At the exit, the handle could get dirty in these parts and the mechanism could be damaged. And that's why there's that little detail that we can have this locked in case we get muddy, and when we return to the city, it's simply a matter of cleaning the car, keeping it really clean and still able to emerge. We could turn it on with a little button. And we also have this bar to make it easier for us when getting in the vehicle. Here we have fast charging and conventional charging at up to 100 kilowatts speed, and well, it's not the fastest, but considering that we only have 36 kilowatts HH in the battery, I think it's pretty fast, since fast charging would take us less than half an hour. In the back we have the very nice taillights, in the same style as Fangchengbao Bao, and we have the complete wheels here, the same ones that we would have in that part with the same 21-inch rims. And look, when opening the door, which by the way, I haven't mentioned that we would have magnetic closure on the 4 doors, and, apart from that, we would also have it in the trunk. But, apart from that, when you open it, if you notice, the suspension lowers, mainly to make it easier to put bags or anything else in order to have it at a better height. Since this vehicle is 1.90 meters tall, since we have the UNIAP, the height would be adjustable. So, it could be up to 2 meters high. Look at the trunk, the space. This would be the small space, quite a bit, to be honest, but that's because on this occasion, we would have 7 seats in this vehicle, but, however, we would also have another model that would be the 6-seater, which, logically, the seats in the second row would be much more comfortable, but that, depending on the customer's needs, logically, they would prefer it to be more comfortable or to have one more seat. But notice here that it would be lowered simply by pressing some buttons that we could press independently or both at the same time. And it wouldn't just go down because now you'll notice that it would be completely flat, but if you look here we still have 2 more buttons that we could use to lower the second row. This time, as you can see, it would be for 3 seats. From the same brand as Fangchengbao, since it's a brand with a lot of personality, they also sell you an extra that would allow you to have a bed, right? So, thanks to the fact that we have a normal plug here or even the 12 volts one of this cigarette lighter type, it's like we would have a small mattress to level out these 2 parts. The second mattress completely covers the part of the upper surface and would stay, completely flat. Taking into account these nooks and crannies, you could have a bed and lie down here, and by the way we could have the panoramic roof. Just a moment, I have to turn it on. And the thing is that we would have the panoramic roof completely and we could see the stars in the countryside in a really big and spacious SUV. Look, I'm 1.80 meters tall. The bed would reach all the way to the top here. We could lie down here. Keep in mind that this would be 1.60, if I remember correctly, and not 1.10 meters that other vehicles might have. We have a lot of width, so you could be with your partner doing little things that I'm not going to mention in this video because otherwise they might throw it at me. But you understand me, right? And this is a good opportunity to ask you to write to me. Thank you very much. Let's continue with the video. I'm going to leave it in its original state first, which by the way, here we would have some buttons. Well, so that it would be access and not press both, right? Notice that they would both move at the same time. Let's continue. Oh, well, some information. For example, if you're in bed and you're sleeping, of course, it would be a bit cumbersome to go out through that door. Here, if you look, Ricardo, here we would have a small button. We could open the door. Here we could remove the wheels. I would simply remove these 2 nuts, which by the way I hadn't shown you, since we would have the tools here. With this tool, you take it, remove these 2 anchors to be able to remove the spare tire. Let's put it back in place. Perfect. Well, here we would have it really tidy, each place with its own organization. That's good for the lights and more spaces that I forgot. Here we would have 2 subwoofers because we would have 18 speakers, the French brand of the Bet. This would be manual, since it is an all-terrain tailgate, but it would have a magnetic closure. We would have a 91.5 L tank, since we have a 2.0 turbocharged combustion engine with 278 horsepower and we also have 2 electric motors that add up to a total of 74.48 horsepower. My goodness, it really has and also, it takes you from 0 to 100 in just 4.8 seconds, considering that it weighs 3.3 tons. But the most interesting thing is not that, but that we have 760 Newton meters of torque. And what is that useful for? Logically, it is an off-road vehicle, and what they have been able to do, especially with the BYD group, is that they have been able to use the reduction. We know that the most important thing for off-road vehicles is not acceleration, but being able to use a lot of power at low speeds, and that is what has been achieved with the DMO engine, dual mod of rad. My English is so bad. But anyway, here we would have the structure of the upper part and it weighs 3.3 tons, but keep in mind that this supports 4 times its weight. We are talking about directly supporting 13 tons for safety. And that is, wow. The exclusivity is in the safety. Let's continue. Before going inside, I would also like to show you the engine, since we have an engine and I rarely show a vehicle with engines, so I am going to show you what the engine is like. As I said before, we would have the magnetic lock. Here we have the hood. We wouldn't have a trunk, since we have this exclusive BYD DMO dual mode of road engine. And also, logically, to put the oil or to put the wipers on. So, how about you get in with me, Ricardo? Look, pressing here would lower this skirt. We open the door to go in, right? And as expected, a luxury brand, from the BYD group knows how to do things well, comforts. Just by sitting in this seat I have already noticed the sensation of all these details that we can find inside. Look, just on the top, how we have the sides stripped. Look, well, it's really big. I love that they have quite large windows, the mirrors, sorry, with LED lights, and also this one for the sun we could remove to have it on the side. We would have this quite wide in case the sun shines on us at different angles. Okay, let's take a look at the interior. First of all, I would like to mention that we would have 18 speakers from the French brand Vialet, and not only would they be throughout the cabin on top or on the sides, but we would also have. Tesla has to learn a little bit about that. There are some things that can be very minimalist, but there are things that can be offered to the customer, such as having speakers in the headrest, so that they can give you directions while you are using the GPS or even on a call, right? Here we have it completely wrapped in leather with some two-tone wood details that match the leather and the base color, and if you notice, we would have ambient lighting here. Here we would have it in direct, but we would also have several points here that are transparent with the wood, since this type of manufacturing is very complex. More details here in aluminum. By the way, for people who are not mentioned that this is a very large vehicle, we would have this section so that you can hold on tight and get in very comfortably. Well, we would also have more attachment points, not only in this part. Logically, for the co-pilot we would have the attachments or for getting in as well, and we would have here for the air conditioning, which would be manual, the typical security recognition camera that we would have from BYD and Huawei. Here we would have a camera that, by the way,
subscribe. And take the photo automatically, or we could take a photo of the outside in case of a route. Well, we could tell the assistant to take a photo. These are small peculiarities that can help. Look, notice the small details. Here we would have the fans and P logo, for example, if it is going to get in or directly turn it on and be able to have the gear lever. And here we would have a total of 5 screens in this vehicle. We would have the central rear view mirror, the SUD, 50 inches, 12.3 inches. On the instrument panel, we would have 17.3 inches on the main screen, and for the co-pilot, after 12.3 inches, these 3 screens would have 2.5K, and we are going to do the test. And of course, by the way, it has the Harmony operating system, since it has a collaboration with Huawei, so it works perfectly. And for people who have already seen our videos, well, logically they will already know how the Harmony system works. It works perfectly. Here we would have the steering wheel with several functions to call the virtual assistant, calls, etc., right? But the interesting thing is that we would have the modes here, the Eco, up to the most sport, and this would be for off-roading, which we could use in different modes, for example, in the snow, in the desert, in mud, in mountains or on rocks and so on. And as I mentioned before, we have the UNIMP from an inherited from the Yan Onin U8, and that is that we have independent adjustable suspensions for each suspension, and it's not only height adjustable, which by the way, we could have a different height. I'll ask Ricardo to stand in front now so you can see how the height changes. It also has 3 types of suspension hardness. What does that mean? For example, on the roads, thanks to all the sensors we have, it adapts in advance depending on the terrain, whether it's off-road or in the city, with potholes, so that you can go, and that's where the name, cloud, or seat, comes from, in the cloud, because it really is like it completely absorbs the imperfections or potholes in the road, or from the same terrain that we could have, rock, mud, or in the mountains, which are not paved terrain. Right now we have it at the highest point, so Ricardo jumps out. It could be lowered to the lowest point. And on the ground it would only be 19.8 centimeters. Let's raise it again. On the way up, it's logically a bit slower, but hey, we could raise it all the way up, which could reach the height of the vehicle, almost to the floor. In other words, we have a fairly wide range of distances. Go up, Ricardo. Small details like for example, here we would have the cup holder. It has a depth, imagine that you're holding a Starbucks cup, they're quite deep so that there's much more space and it doesn't end up like this. And simply with this little button, it would go up. You can adjust it or keep it going all the way up. Here we would have a fridge that holds up to -6 grams, up to 50 degrees. Not only would it be cold or hot, but we would have everything from freezing, so we could grab an ice cream while you're in the mountains or in the heat or even in the desert and eat an ice cream. And also, hey, if you want to eat a pizza, you can eat an ice cream or heat up a pizza in the same fridge. In other words, you have a function. And here we would have to turn it on from -6 to 50 degrees. Since it is an all-terrain vehicle, we would have several functions here, such as, we could lock the front wheels or lock the rear wheels. Here we would also have the function of the unit to adjust the volume, to turn the air conditioning on or off, small buttons. Well, and here we have one called Extreme. What is it for? Apart from the speed that it could reach in the acceleration, which is not the important thing. In this Extreme, what it mainly does is configure the engine so that it goes at a low speed and also has a lot of power. Here we would have two modes, which would be the one for climbs to be able to have greater control on the climbs, but also here you could play a little game, the loose pull, but with the terrain. Imagine that you want to play, oh my gosh, these are games for people with a lot of money, honestly, instead of being the kids who pull the loose pull, well, we would have it in this part. But hey, apart from that, we would have the function that I'm going to leave you with in another video. You can support and tow a 13-ton trailer. Look at the power of the engine, which can tow a 13-ton truck. Spectacular for leaving your sunglasses, which I think is great, especially when it's an off-road vehicle, it's quite necessary. Here we would have more buttons for the sunroof, for the curtains, for the call. Well, many vehicles have them, but I think that in an off-road vehicle, when you're on such uneven roads, just in case, having an emergency call and having, logically, the BYD group service is quite important. Here we would have the glove compartment, a fairly considerable space. Here we would have the screen that we could have multimedia, we could listen to music, we could watch a Netflix movie if it were in the West, and also in the seats we would have ventilation, heating and massage. And not only in these two seats, but we also have it in the back. These colored seats, you see, quite nice. With this stitching, embroidery, very nice. And also it has different, look, if you look over here we could have this adjustment that is quite extended because, well, it is quite a large vehicle, it could have more legroom. Here we would have this adjustment for the seatbelt. Apart from that we could also have the headrest adjustment for a much taller person. Here we would have two 50W wireless chargers. Here we would have more space, and apart from that we would have for the aroma fragrances that we could have 3 selections that you can choose from. I think the brand has up to 10 aromas. That's why I say, Fangchengbao Bao is a brand with a lot of personality. So, what do you think if we look at the rear seats? By the way, we would have 3 rows, so let's go to the second row first. We would also have the skirt, we would have this, which would be to hold on and get in more easily. We have the same line of the interior, we don't have rear screens, and we have some buttons that we could use to be able to accommodate the passenger seat. We would also have 2 60W USB Type-C ports. Here we would have several functions, several settings. It would be touch sensitive, different from what we are used to, such as a screen or in different buttons, but we would have it this way. And we could turn on the music, we could pause the music for ventilation, for heating of both seats. Here we would have to control the air conditioning in the back. We would not only have it on the top, but also in the footwell. There is a small button. You press here and you are selecting. Look, I am pressing the button that I just showed you. We could select, and with this lever we could choose to use the sunshade. With this button and this lever we could control it. We could have other selections. For example, The window from this lever. I control it from here. Well, it actually also has voice commands, but well, the emergency and mechanical opening to be able to open the door. We have here a small Funyun P light. Here we would have the electric opening, like all electric vehicles, in a very elegant and simple way with its magnetic closure. We have very comfortable, well-aligned seats. And you don't need to, for example, tell him, hey, land, such and such. Here we have the ISOFIX anchors. Here we would have the armrest, also very elegant, in a wood color, which is what I really like. Look how nice. And here we would have a small space to leave €500 bills. How much do you think I could fit? I'm going to sit here. Quote. We would also have it in this seat, but we would have it so we could adjust the seats. In case we didn't have anyone in the back, we could lean all the way back, or even if you look at the backrest, we would have it so we could adjust it in an extremely comfortable way. Look how I can sit in this seat or be able to lower the front seat to have more space and be totally comfortable. Let's look at the back seat. I'm going to leave it tilted like this and everything. And look, just by pressing a small lever here, it would gradually adjust. So you can get in comfortably. I'm going to put it in quotes, since they are the seats of the third row, and this is an SUV, not an MPV. Also, even if we had 5.2 meters, keep in mind that 30 centimeters is directly eaten up by the wheel. And that's it, you simply access this part and we would have 2 seats in the back. We also have the reading lights here so that you can hold on, be comfortable, and also, if you notice, with the speakers, let's not forget in the rear, we would also have the speakers to listen to the music of the Valet brand. And here, both on the left and on the right, we would have the 60W sockets to charge your mobile phone. We would also have it in this part. And if you notice, we also have a microphone, that is, the virtual assistant could also recognize where you are calling from. So, I think we have 6 microphones in total. In this vehicle, when you are sitting in the third row, logically you already have someone in front, but you could ask them to give you a little space. Right now we have it very far back. I'm 1.80 meters tall, so I feel a little tight, since I could fit, well, look, I can only fit about 2 people, not much more. But the good thing about it is, for example, here we have a small lever that we could recline the seat, but nevertheless, if we didn't have anything in the back and it could be decent, I'm not going to say superb, but I wouldn't feel so claustrophobic, mainly because we have a fairly large window, so as not to feel like you're in the back of a trunk, but you're in a seat, well, it's tight. I think I've already mentioned everything we could see inside, but the important part, the most exclusive part of this video, is testing Huawei's autonomous driving in a BYD vehicle. Well, from Fangchengbao of the BYD group. Let's go. We would have the sensor. On the top, we have many millimeter wave sensor cameras, but I have to add that these 2 on both sides are not leading sensors, and instead we could choose an extra for the lights. Just like in the Jew, we could choose to have lights to have a better view and simply add that we could have this extra. Come in, Ricardo, with me. Let's go. Well, here we are. We are going to focus on safety above all. We adjust this electronically. We would have the mirrors. Quite traditional on the left. The right. Let's set a path for the first one. Let's do the test first. First, before anything else, the driving sensations. Here we would have the lever, which I can tell is super cool, the feeling is quite good. This vehicle is smooth. It is extremely quiet. We have double glazing. By the way, here we would have a small 360 button. We are in electric mode, completely silent. We have 3D, the wheels. Notice how we could see to the millimeter to be able to know how much distance we have with respect to the ground. We have the SUD. Let's see if the SUD is visible. Well, as always, it's blinking, but decent. You just said, Ricardo, that this is completely silent, right? And it's. The PYD group has worked hard on this product from the Fun and Paw brand. Let's try it in sport mode. Wow, it's raining, so we'd have to be a little careful and we'd have full power considering that we weighed 3.3 tons, but nevertheless, it's super fast and the brakes are. That's why I say that the suspension of AP is very good. Thanks to these suspensions, what makes it totally balanced and that it doesn't sway so much. We have a small bus here, and I say small because it just came out because we're in such a big vehicle that the bus itself feels small. That says it all, Ricardo. Let's turn. I'm going to make sure there aren't too many people. I'm going to turn and accelerate a little. Have you noticed? Right now we're in comfort mode and the suspension has been adjusted quickly so that it's a little softer instead of being so sporty and tight, right? And even when in comfort mode, the acceleration travel is extended for greater comfort. Here we're going at 50 kilometers per hour. We have cameras here and immediately, if we want to accelerate, we could accelerate in a much more comfortable way. And we'll see in red. I'm going to brake to see how it works. Not too much of an emergency brake, but nevertheless, have you seen how the suspension works, man? We just stopped and we have this option. We have the Super Boss here, we have this configuration, we press the brake with our left foot and the acceleration with our right foot. You've seen that it just moves. And we accelerate.
Wow.
And it just directly activated the 348 horsepower because it needs. Did you hear the combustion engine too? Because it just activated the 3 engines it has. The 2 electric ones plus the combustion engine to give it all the power and have the 748 horsepower. I'm going to stop for a moment and let's configure it to test autonomous driving. We've just set the direction we're going to take. I simply don't have the brake anymore. We're stopped and just pressing it once would give us Huawei's autonomous driving, the ADS 3.2.1. We've already placed it on these 3 screens so that it can be seen perfectly. By the way, it has a slightly different interface than the Huawei one, right? I think it's quite similar. The thing is that the little car, obviously the one owned by PAO, is explaining everything that's happening during autonomous driving. It's also putting it in writing. We'd also have it on the SUD screen. We have it on the instrument panel and on the big screen, right? It gets into the right lane, turns right, slows down a little. We're going at 30 kilometers per hour. It slowed down a little, 28 kilometers per hour. It accelerates. Okay, perfect. Why do I give it such importance, especially when making turns? Because it's really in the turns, in the changes of direction, that's where autonomous driving is really put to the test. We're going at 40 kilometers per hour. We just saw this one. Look, we have a car on the left side. It has slowed down, but we have here I don't know if it's a motorcycle or something, but it has slowed down a little bit. It has turned without any problem. Its maximum speed is 40 kilometers per hour, but we could set it up to go up to 60 kilometers per hour, depending on the road, because it gets there. And now when we go up I'm going to change direction because I want to go on some slightly more special roads to see how this autonomous driving works, and now we're going to go right away. Okay, perfect. We're entering this road. Phew. This vehicle is quite big and the truth is that I'm not used to such a big vehicle, so the sensations seem okay, perfect. Okay, perfect. We're now on these ring roads and we're going to change direction, and you can even change direction while you're in autonomous driving. Every now and then you have to touch the steering wheel a little bit, so you know you're alive, right? By the way, it's also a good time to ask you to subscribe. Thank you very much. We can see that vehicles are entering, there's no problem. We're going to get out. Perfect, pretty smooth. Like a person is driving. It's going 40 kilometers per hour. You detected it right away. 40, but I have it at 60. So, if you can speed up a little bit, we're going at 50 kilometers per hour. It's a pretty fast speed, especially on the turns, I mean. Okay, there's an entrance here, something's difficult. Okay, perfect. It's slowed down a little, check that there's no vehicle behind it and has directly entered the lane. Perfect. And now we're going to get back in. Okay. That's why I say that this is what puts autonomous driving to the test, because if not even the human can see it, it has to brake, it has to look in the rearview mirror. Well, the same thing happens here, but in an even faster way, because in the end, there are cameras that immediately detect it, and the sensors that directly detect it. By the way, Huawei is going to launch its Star vehicle for 200,000 euros. That is, a vehicle here in China for 200,000 euros. Well, from 150 euros to 200,000 euros, which is the S800. Let's get off the ring road. Let's go through the city right now, which by the way, in 2 days it's Chinese New Year, so we're going to see fewer and fewer people in the city, right? Okay, so I don't know what you thought of this video. Did you like it? Give it a good like, leave me a comment about which vehicle you would like us to test, and that's it. Subscribe and see you next time. CH. Oh, wait, while we're here, we could choose the parking space, for example. Let's go to this parking space. I'll click here and it'll do it all by itself. Perfect. Let's see what it does right now. Let's see what it does. This one went straight to the right, but it doesn't matter. Let's go to the left, right? We have another perfect vehicle to really check how it works. By the way, the Ombo L60, the video that Ricardo is going to upload right now. We have saved this parking space, we have this one that is annoying us. Let's see if it can really do it by itself. It's going to think for a moment, it's going to look for another place. I think it can't find many places here anymore. Well, since we haven't been able to park, at least we can park directly in this one, and that's it, let it park directly. And that's it, since it's parking automatically, we'll end the video. Give it a good like if you enjoyed it, subscribe and see you next time. Bye. Parked.